Okay, so this is my computer-mediated project. It is an instructional video on how to set up a Risk board and some of the basic game mechanics involved. So to start, let's just go over some of the pieces we have. You get 5 total die, 3 red attack die, which the attacker then uses in order to go about their attacks, 2 defense die that the defender uses in order to defend against the attacks. You get 6 colors of different, with 3 different units per color. I have the other 5 colors here sampled with 7 infantry units each, but each color has a full army of the infantry, cavalry, and artillery units. Along with the units and the die, you get a 42 card deck, which each card has a picture of a unit on it, along with a picture of a specific country. These 42 cards correspond exactly with the 42 countries that are represented on the board itself, divided into 6 different continents. On top of the 42 cards, you get 2 wild cards, which do not have countries of pictures on them, but instead have a picture of each different type of unit. These cards are used to represent different units in card sets, and they're helpful when you're playing the game and need a specific card to complete a card set, and we will cover card sets in a little bit. Each unit is derived from the infantry unit. The infantry piece is worth 1 unit. The cavalry piece is worth 5 units or 5 infantry, and the artillery piece is worth 10 units or 10 infantry. These are used to represent your team's color on the board after you have set everything up. So to go about setting up, you can have a 2 to 6 player game. Depending on how many players you have per game, it depends on how you want to set the board up. If you have 4 to 6 players, you can go around the board and each player choose their countries as they go through. They choose the territories they want to occupy at the beginning of the game, going around in a circle, with each person getting to choose a set amount of territories per turn. Or you can go through and use the cards to show what territories each color gets. So in this example, we're going to use the cards to designate the different countries that each color gets to occupy. And when you do that, you obviously don't use the wild cards because they do not have any country representation and have no meaning towards the board. So the other pieces that you have then, apart from the different colored armies, the cards and the die, is this golden larger horse unit, which is used to show the position of the card set amounts. The card set amounts are how many troops each card set is worth. A card set can be a card consisting of 3 cannons, 3 infantry, or 3 horses, or 1 of each. If you are able to get these cards throughout the game, you can trade them in for a set amount of units, which is what this totem represents. So if he is sitting on the 4, you get 4 units per card set, and then you move him down when you turn in a card set. Each card, you get a card each time you successfully attack during the game, and when you have collected enough cards for a card set, you turn them in at the beginning of your turn to get extra units. And that plays into how you go about doing your turn, which we will explain here in a little bit. But to start, we're going to set up the board using the 6-player method with all the colors, and we're going to use the cards to show how you can use the countries represented on these cards to set up the board with each color getting 7 different territories to control using 7 cards. I get the number 7 simply by dividing 6, which is the 6 color groups, by 42, which is the amount of cards, resulting in a total of 7 territories per color group. So I'm going to put it on time-lapse fast forward here, and I'm going to set up the board, and you'll see me doing this, and I will explain exactly some of the other game mechanics here in a moment. Okay, so that is all but the yellow group set up. And what this allows us to do is it allows an even and fair distribution of the territories to each individual color group, which will allow for a more fair start to the game. If sometimes when each player is allowed to choose his or her own territories at the beginning, they can stack the odds in their favor, if you will excuse the expression. But other than that, setting up the board this way allows us to not only make it a more fair beginning, but it also forces the players themselves to adapt their gameplay strategies to match where their units ended up on the board. It's just a more random, more fair way to set this up. So to go through and explain exactly the process behind that, you just look at the country on the back of the card. In this case, it is Afghanistan. You choose one of your infantry units. You cannot place cannons or cannons or horses on the board at this point. You're only using infantry, and you just find the country and you place the unit down on that country. So the first one is Afghanistan. We have Congo, we have Peru, and Quebec, and China, and Ontario, and Ukraine. And that should be all 42 countries divided up evenly between the 6 color groups, each color group receiving 7 territories. So at the start of the game then, this is how the board looks. Each player has an equal amount of territories in his or her possession, and the game can start to progress. You then go through and you reshuffle the cards, obviously, and you set them off to the side to be used for card sets later. Like I said before, when you successfully conquer one of the territories of another player, you get a card set at the end of your turn. When you have a card set of 3 matching cards, or one of each of the different types of units represented on the cards, you can turn it in. You can turn that card set in for a bonus amount of troops. Speaking of bonus units, you will notice here on the side of the board here, the bottom left-hand corner, you have each of the 6 continents represented with numbers next to them. The numbers next to the continent names designate how many extra units you get per turn if your color controls the entire continent. So take South America, for example. You have the number 2 next to it. I'm sure it's hard to see on the video, but it says South America with a big black number 2. And if you would control Venezuela, Peru, Brazil, and Argentina all with your yellow color group, you would then get 2 extra units per turn as long as you control that entire continent. The only other way to get troops in this game is by counting up the amount of territories that you control and dividing by 3. What dividing by 3 does, it is you get 1 unit per 3 territories that you control. And so if you would have 9 territories, you would get 3 units. And 3 is the minimum units that you are able to get per turn. So if you have 1 through 9 territories, you still get 3, regardless of what the number of territories divided by 3 for your particular turn is. Anything from 9 to 12, you would get 4, 12 to 15, then you get 5, and you just keep going up multiplying by 3. And you always round down. So if it's 11, you would get, or excuse me, if it was 13, you would get still 4 units. You wouldn't go up to the next number 5, which is 3 divided by 15. So with this set up here, you then have 7 units for the yellow group and 7 units for every other group. So each player at the beginning of their first turn would get 3 units, because we already said that the minimum you can get is 3. So you would simply start the game by rolling a die, and whoever has the highest number would get to go first, and it would go in a clockwise position around the table then. So for yellow, we'll say yellow goes first. They get 3 units to start, so we'll pull off 3 here. And you set them up wherever you want on the board. We'll say we'll set them up in Congo here. And from this point on, then you can start attacking and start to expand your influence in whatever part of the board you think strategically necessary for your eventual conquest of the entire board, which is what the game is about. When the game ends, when one color group has control of all 42 territories. That's the basic setup for the game and some of the simple game mechanics. The game is a bit more complicated than what I made it out to be, and I'm sure that it does not make entire sense if you've never played it before. But if you ever do wish to play, the board is set up almost the exact same way every time, and the individual game mechanics for each game is also the same. The basic mechanics are the same no matter what type of Risk you play or what mode you're playing in. This particular board has a lot of memories for me personally. You remember playing this game with this particular board and this set of Risk for many years with my aunts and uncles over Christmas, and the game has a lot of special memories for me, and it is a very fun game to play if you're willing to sit down with a group of friends and play a board game for a few hours. And that's my project. This is just a still photo view of the board after it's been entirely set up. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, good luck with the rest of the semester.